Game 1 is just a few hours away, and the Winnipeg Jets are preparing to take on one of the toughest opponents in this year's playoffs, the Dallas friggin' Stars. Game 1 coming right up on tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets.
You're Locked On the Hockey Jets, your daily podcast on the Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey friends, and welcome to tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Harrison Lee, an avid Winnipeg Jets fan and an online blogger. You can follow me on Twitter at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. Thanks for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day every day. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all of your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. Doing so, of course, is always free of charge and ensures you never miss another episode. Most of all, though, we just love and appreciate your support. Tonight's episode, obviously, it's about to be Game 1 time. And after we chat a little bit about Game 1, I also want to talk about how this series is going to be potentially Hellebuyck's redemption arc. And, the Jets kind of working with, let's be real, a slightly less optimal lineup when injuries are hitting. So we'll dive into all of that. But first, let's talk about Game 1. So the Jets are likely to have at least one or two absences. We don't know yet 100% who it's going to be. I will say that from practice on Tuesday, the Jets were kind of sitting Stanley and Morrissey, so I don't think either of those guys are going to be good to go. But Scheifele did stay out for an extended practice. Yes, he is wearing a no contact. No, I don't think he's going to miss Game 1. I don't really have a percentage here, and I don't really know exactly how this is going to play out, but I would think that if Scheifele is like 85 to 90% good to go, I wouldn't expect him to miss this first game. The stakes are too high. He has a really good record against the Stars, and I think the Jets are going to try and get him back and really set the tone early if they can. The Stars are not really the world's most abundantly physical team either, so it's not like the risk of what happened against the Blues is likely to repeat here. Yes, they will hit you hard at times, but they're not going to try and bruise and beat you to death quite like St. Louis. The Blues definitely had a very specific tactical plan, and that was to pound you into submission. This is not how Dallas is likely to line up, so I think the Stars are going to have a more renewed focus on fast countering play, strong defensive alignments, and a really stifling game that makes it very hard and very costly if you make a mistake. Looking at their lineup so far, as of yesterday, you're looking at Gronlund, Hintz, and Rantanen on the first line, Ben, Duchesne, and Sagan on the second, Johnston, Marchman, and maybe Robertson if he's okay. He's still kind of a bit of a mystery as to when he's coming back exactly. I've seen some stuff that he might be early in the series. We'll see if it's as early as this evening, but on the fourth line, Beck, Steele, and Dodonov are kind of anchoring that last group. On defense, we're not going to see Heiskanen for at least a little bit. Harley, Lyubushkin on the first, Lindell, Ceci on the second, and Bichel and Petrovic on the third, which if you listen to yesterday's crossover episode with the Stars, you heard that this duo is actually pretty defensively stout. So this game for me feels like an early chance for the Jets to set a nice, impressive tone. I will say that I'm not quite sure how Winnipeg is going to line up. Obviously, practice will happen. Will have happened earlier this morning or afternoon. I will have already recorded this before then, so we won't have an exact knowledge of the lineups until later. But you'll probably have already seen them. My guess is that we probably go back, if Scheifele's healthy, to the usual CSV, and then you'll probably have 27, 7, and 91. Your usual third line, and Toninato probably comes out, and you'll probably have Barron anchoring the fourth between Tanev and Iafallo. Now, I am curious because, the last game when the Jets had their backs against the wall, Arniel finally made line changes. Now, do I expect those to last? Probably not. Iafallo ended up with Lowry, and you saw some other interesting combinations, but I don't know that I expect those to be something that he carries over. Usually, he has a habit of doing some changes and then going back to the usual starting regimen the following games, unless something really goes wrong, right? He is a creature of habit, and I think that sometimes has paid off, sometimes hasn't. We'll see if it does this time. But for what I'm expecting from this game, I think it's going to be pretty fast. I think it's going to be less physical, but I think it's going to be very difficult to get through the neutral zone. The Stars tend to be relatively stingy, and when you make a mistake, they have very rapid counters. Their lineup is maybe not one that looks super scary on paper in some ways, but I promise you, when you see how it generally plays, it is a menace. If Robertson comes back, that would be a big game changer early. Johnston, though, probably one of the guys you're going to want to worry about. Even Sagan has still had a couple of decent moments. Duchesne, I think, has really rallied this top nine, though, down the middle. He has been super impressive. Rantanen starting to round into form. Hintz, of course, always dangerous. Gronlund, I don't really worry about as much, although he does have some good finishing talent. But, I think the Jets, generally speaking, have the ability to at least win some of these matchups defensively. Offensively, I think that's where Winnipeg right now may be at a bit of a disadvantage. If Morrissey is sitting, I would like to see some changes to the blue line. So I'd make 54 for your first pairing. On your second, I'd actually like to try Miller and DeMello together. I don't know who would probably play the left side, maybe Miller. I don't know that it'd be ideal, but Colin's good enough to where hopefully he can compensate with some of that puck-moving ability. On your third pairing, just go with Fleury Shen. They did well last game. I don't know if that's going to be the case this game, but if Fleury can replicate his results from Game 7 against the Blues, I'd worry less about that. So, yeah, this will be an interesting opening. I don't really know what to expect from this series. And a lot of it is partly because I just don't know what to expect from their most important player, Connor Hellebuyck. We obviously are going to talk a little bit about how this next series can really change the narrative around him. I will say that at the end of the Game 7, those double overtimes, he looked like a different goalie. But it's hard to get past the yips or any psychological pressure in just one game. So obviously for Winnipeg, this is going to be a bit of a different game, a bit of a different series. I don't know how Dallas is going to approach Winnipeg. We've seen three opponents in the last couple of playoffs that have done very similar styles of play to the Jets. We haven't seen Dallas this year do the same kind of thing. And Winnipeg has generally won most of these regular season matchups, sometimes in very dominant fashion. Given how they played against the Avs and how they managed to outlast them, I am really setting no expectations for this series. I will say that I do think the Jets win Game 1. I will, I guess, go out on the limb here and say Winnipeg wins 4-3. That might not be accurate. We'll have to see how Hellebuyck responds. But yeah, I guess cautiously optimistic about this one. Winnipeg has shown that at times when, the bell is calling, they have answered and really stepped up. Do I expect that in this game? Probably. We'll just have to see if it really comes to fruition and if Winnipeg is able to dictate the terms. It's going to be a tough one, though. This is a very hard matchup. I don't think anyone is expecting a cakewalk here. And we know that the Stars just took care of one of the scariest teams in the postseason picture. So they are for real. They are going to get healthier throughout the series. And for the Jets, the same can be said about Winnipeg as well. But we just have to hope that the Jets, what they've done in regular season matchups and how they've won the last couple of months prior to the Blues series, is more the trend than what we saw in the previous 7 games here of the playoffs. But either way, I wouldn't be shocked if this series goes to 7. If it ends in 6, that'd be a minor miracle for the Jets. Really not expecting anything here, though. And don't be shocked if the Stars are the ones to oust the Jets. They're a really good team. Winnipeg is pretty tired and banged up, so there is a lot at stake. But hopefully the Jets show that they can be one of the best teams in the league. But like I said, nothing really matters unless the guy in goal is back to full strength. And we'll chat about how, maybe the series against St. Louis has really prepped Hellebuyck for a deeper playoff run. But before we dive into all of that, I did want to let you know about our friends and partners at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. They're even packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. I'm always the person who goes for the shelled variety. A lot of you probably want no shell, but I personally like it. Maybe it's because I'm from Maryland. We are used to cracking open crabs out here. Just something to, tear open and get a little nice treat when you get that pistachio inside. But maybe you have to have a more convenient one, right? You're on the go, dropping the kids off at school. Maybe you need an afternoon pick-me-up when the 3 p.m. slump hits. Maybe you want something before you head over to the gym and have your workout session. No matter what, they've got great flavors to choose from. And of course, it's a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Hey friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Everydayers, thank you so much for rejoining us on tonight's episode as we are just chatting about a lot of stuff heading into this next round of the NHL playoffs. The Jets, miracle upon miracles, are here, and boy oh boy, are they ready to take on, or they're going to have to be ready to take on one of the toughest teams in the whole league. But man, this is going to be a slugfest, not physically necessarily, but I think we're going to see a lot of offense. I think we're going to see a very tight battle. I think both teams are going to give it 100%. And amidst all of that, the biggest question for Winnipeg, outside of, where the scoring may come from, it's got to be the guy in goal. Connor Hellebuyck has had a very topsy-turvy playoff record the last few years. Now, here's the thing about Helly. I've always felt like in previous seasons, it was hard to really fault him, right? The Jets played some awful, awful hockey. And even in this series against the Blues, their away games were just a nightmare. They were bad. No way around it. The Jets got clowned by St. Louis on the road. Now, St. Louis is really hard to win, and I think they were on, after this series, like a 15-game home winning streak or something. It's probably not quite that crazy, but really close to it, if not. Just a very strange series where you had basically no away wins. It was all at home, and I don't think you're going to see that against the Stars. But if the Jets are really wanting to get through, Hellebuyck has got to lock in like he did in the double overtime in Game 7. Now, like I said on the preview episode yesterday, I'm a very ardent Connor Hellebuyck fan. I have defended him in many postseason runs. This year became the first year where it was really hard for me to do that. The stuff that he was getting beat on, including some of the squeakers through, the 5-hole and 7-hole, it's hard, right? You want to really back your guy. You want to kind of give him that support, but the high glove stuff, the ones that squeak between his arm and blocker, it's just a little bit challenging. But then, the double overtime against the Blues, Game 7, he looked like a brand new goalie. And when you saw the end of the game, Arniel came up to him and was just ecstatic, right? And from the video footage that we've seen of the Jets locker room and stuff, everyone has always rallied around Helly. And I think because of that, when he struggles, the rest of the team does too. As the Jets go, so does Hellebuyck, right? Although in this case, it's more the inverse. As Hellebuyck goes, so do the Jets. Winnipeg builds their team from the goal out. Whether that's successful, I think this is going to be the playoff run that really is a referendum on that, right? How the Jets have tried to win a cup is really unusual compared to how most teams are built. Winnipeg starts in goal and works its way up the lineup, but most teams start with their top lines and stuff and go backwards. That's why goalies are usually more of an afterthought, and why you see teams like Edmonton kind of struggling to find somebody in goal. It's usually not one of the positions that you're going to have an easy time recruiting or drafting or signing free agents. It's just a challenge. And so in a lot of ways, the Jets are blessed, but I think, by the same token, if Helly does struggle the series, you do have to start wondering, how much can you ride on him? I do think, though, that after everything that happened against the Blues, that maybe, just maybe, Hellebuyck is back. We've seen a lot of topsy-turvy performances last round. I don't think that's him. I don't feel like that's going to be what happens this series. If the Stars tried to do the same thing with lots of screenshots and stuff, that could be a bit of a problem. We'll have to see how he navigates it. In double overtime in Game 7, I don't think he faced nearly as many of those. He had fairly good eyes on the puck. If the Stars are smart, they're going to try and crash the crease, create lots of traffic, and get him moving laterally. If you do that, he does tend to struggle more. So it's going to be a very interesting one, right? Hellebuyck is a guy that for years I've always been a huge fan of, but the playoff record recently really hasn't matched his regular season performance. This time, though, I don't know. I feel like we're going to see the real Hellebuyck stand up, whatever version that is. I'm going to have the confidence to say that he's going to have a very different playoff round than the Blues round. I mean, at this point, it can't get much worse. So in my mind, it can only really go up from here. He put together one of the worst playoff series ever for a goalie that still the team that had that goalie won. So, at this point, anything that he does is likely an improvement on that first round. And I'm hopeful that, the yips or whatever it was that he was dealing with in those first few games have started to fade. It will be also very interesting to see what happens in the away games this coming weekend. Dallas, not exactly known for having a really imposing home atmosphere, but make no mistake, that Texas arena gets pretty loud. It's noisy. There's a lot of energy. And I think Stars fans, as Joey Erickson from Locked On Stars said yesterday, they also kind of feel like they're a team of destiny. And I wonder if that's going to come up in this series. Will the crowd noise and pressure and expectation, cause the Jets to crack again? It almost did in the first round, but then they found some miraculous moments to carry them through. Will they need that this time? I hope not. I'm hoping that the Jets just play their brand of hockey. When they do that, they are one of the most unbeatable teams anywhere. And if the Jets can take these first two games at home, it gives them so much of a margin for error. That's the thing that's nice about having home ice advantage is, you're not already starting out on the back foot. In previous years, Winnipeg never had that to rely on. Now they do. It's their strength, and it's really their ace in the hole in any of these series, whether it's the wild card opening round or the Stanley Cup Finals. Having that home ice advantage at the start helps set you up for success later in the series. And if you stumble on the road, that's okay. You have home ice to lean on for up to 7 games. I'm hopeful that that's the case for this upcoming round, that the Jets, get a nice early series lead, hopefully can steal one on the road. I do expect Dallas to win one in Winnipeg somewhere. I don't know which part of the series it'll be. I would feel like it might be more like Game 5. Dallas is a really good road team. They have shown that against Colorado repeatedly. So this is not going to be like the Blues series where, only the home team has won. I do think an away team is going to steal at least 1 or 2 games in this back and forth. It's why I wouldn't really be shocked if this goes to Game 7. I think both of these teams are really battle-tested now. I think that they've both gotten a real taste for the postseason, and I think that they've made some internal adjustments to try and set themselves up for deeper success. So which version of the Jets and Stars come out swinging in Game 1, we'll have to see. But like I said, I think Hellebuyck's going to have a big rebound series. I think this is going to be the version of him that we're missing. And hopefully, amidst all of the chaos that the Stars may throw at goal, that he stands firm, that he stays strong, and he really does play his brand of hockey. Hellebuyck can be almost unbeatable when he's in control, and if he's able to do that in this Stars series, that is going to be the story of the playoffs. So keep an eye out for that. But of course, the Jets are, amidst all of this, still dealing with some adversity and injury. Things have not quite been great on the health front, and even guys like Lowry haven't really looked 100%. We'll chat about how the Jets can maybe start to try and counter some of these injuries. Will it require lineup changes? Arniel won't do this, but I have some suggestions for how to try and at least maybe swap some of the load bearing. Asking some of the guys who are hurt to carry all of the burden might not really work out in those moments where things start to get really dicey. But we'll chat about how to make do with what you got in just a brief moment. Before we dive into that, though, did want to let you know about our friends and partners at Bear Mattress.
An award-winning mattress can change your life. I speak from experience. It happened to me. After years of uncomfortable sleeps, I recently switched to Bear Mattress, and the results were instant. Bear Mattress is designed with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. I used to deal with night sweats, but Bear's best-in-class cooling ensures optimal temperature regulation, which prevents overheating and helps me stay comfortable all night long. Bear offers a wide variety of mattresses, but to get the right one for you, take their sleep quiz that matches you to your perfect mattress based on body type and sleep preferences. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Hey friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for rejoining us as we are closing out tonight with some final thoughts on, how the Jets can kind of counteract some of the wear and tear that they are dealing with right now. Winnipeg is, let's be real, they're probably pretty beat up. Logan Stanley is allegedly hurt. Josh Morrissey obviously, got knocked out last game and missed almost the whole game, which put a lot of extra wear and tear on the top four defense. But man, did they rally and put on one of the craziest performances I've ever seen from this blue line. Scheifele, of course, having to miss stuff. That's not great. Whether it was the Foxa hit or the Shen hit, one of those two, he got hurt. So the Jets, they're probably ailing a bit. Morrissey didn't even look right in those games. And honestly, I hate to even say this, but him getting ousted in that Game 7 might have actually helped the Jets out a bit. I love Josh, but when he's hurt, he is just not the same player. And Pionk was able to really step up and kind of deliver a Morrissey-like performance when Josh wasn't able to. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about this team is that sometimes, the guys that you least expect have really stepped up and played hero. And for me, Pionk and Fleury really did that when there was a lot of responsibility and stuff added to their workload. They took it and really ran with it. So those are performances that those guys can really be proud of. But the Jets also probably want to try and maybe distribute some of the burden around a little bit. They have been riding a lot of guys pretty hard. KFC has had to be the breadwinner for the last couple of weeks. It'd also probably be nice if maybe some of the burden can be lifted from Lowry's shoulders. He talked about it in a post-series interview with Bones, kind of alluding to the fact that he knew he wasn't good in a lot of these games. I think with him, it wasn't really so much just the quality of his play, but the fact that he didn't look like Lowry, right? He looked like he was physically ailing and not really able to have that extra jump into his checks, his forechecking ability, and, the offense around the net. It just wasn't him. And so, this series, I would like to see more Morgan Barron. I think Barron has generally deserved a bigger role with this team. The last couple of months of his play since being moved back to center, there are people talking about him playing over Nemesnikov in the 2C role. Do I want to go that route? I don't know. That might be a little bit of a jump for him. But by the same token, given how he's performed in the bottom six, maybe he's ready for the increased workload. Nemesnikov, for what he has offered, I think we all do kind of know that he's definitely a step behind his pace from last year. And even with some of these clutch goals and stuff, I think you can kind of tell more often than not that he's not able to help as much at even strength as you'd like. So maybe Barron could help out with that. Nemesnikov is really trying his best, but there's only so much that he's going to be able to do. Putting him back in the bottom six might actually be better for everyone. Bones actually did this, last year and had him, as a fourth line center. I don't see why you couldn't do that again. I think that's a perfectly reasonable decision to make. Vlad really excelled in a bottom six role, and this year the fourth line has basically been good no matter who's on it. So I wouldn't really be upset about that idea. And with Tanev really being a wrecking ball, that forechecking unit might be enough to just cause a lot of chaos. So color me in favor of that. I think if Scheifele is in, I would kind of like to see maybe Iafallo back on the first line. I know that it's not the most ideal situation, but, I thought that CSI was pretty good, and I think Iafallo offers a defensive element that really helps out Connor and Scheifele. Because, look, as good as those guys are, we all know that defensively, sometimes the marking goes a little bit awry. The alternative is that maybe you could ask Perfetti to take a bigger role. Cole has really been one of the biggest threats in this whole postseason. He may not have scored on as many opportunities as you'd expect, but he has been a source of creative, chances and offense and some really smart defensive plays. Lots of forechecking. I actually think he could be a really intriguing complement. We know that the duo of Perfetti and Connor has worked really well in the past. Adding Scheifele to the mix might be really spicy. The only challenge, again, is that you do want to make sure that you're not sapping away, the offensive ability of all the other lines. I do kind of wonder, though, if you try that, maybe you can pair Ehlers and Velarde with somebody. Maybe you try Lowry with that trio. That could be very interesting. I just think that you have some real options to swap guys around. You could try different combinations. I think you want to try and maybe drop the ice time and distribute it a little more evenly across your bottom nine, because I feel like, a couple of lines have maybe been ridden a little harder, and some of those guys just haven't been healthy enough to carry that load. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Again, my suspicion is Arniel probably goes back to very familiar shores in this opening game. Unless something really goes wrong, I just don't often see him making a lot of anticipatory adjustments, right? He's the kind of guy who will react at times if pushed to the absolute brink, but it takes him a lot to reach that point. So ideal world, he doesn't reach that point. We don't have to even worry about it because Winnipeg comes out swinging. They get a big win early and settle those nerves. But, it's the playoffs, right? Anything can happen. I know that we've seen some crazy stuff from the opening round of the postseason. Round 2 is already underway. A couple of games have already gotten started. The Oilers came back from a 2-0 deficit to beat Vegas. So if anyone was expecting Vegas to have a walk in the park, it has not been already just one game into the series. Same for the Panthers. They got beat by Toronto pretty badly. So, the scoreline may look flattering in the Panthers defense, but I don't think it was quite nearly as clean as that scoreline makes it look. So lots of interesting stuff. But for the Jets, of course, this is your moment, right? If you get through this round, whoever you face in the conference finals will be hard, but probably not as brutal as these first couple of opponents. Like I said, in a lot of these brackets, the Central Division was the Thunderdome of the playoffs. This was where, a cup winner was truly forged. By the same token, you might also be really tired and beat up by the time that you actually reach the playoff, the conference finals and perhaps the cup finals. But, we'll cross that bridge if the Jets get there. For now, Dallas sits before them. Huge series ahead. Game 1 later tonight. We will have your recap of that and takeaways on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Jets. But for tonight's show, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for listening and making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day, every day. We'll see you back here tomorrow with recap coverage, so see you then. Have a great night, and as always, go Jets, go.